Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to work, cause my boss is a jerk, and I'm not even that paid. I need a change in my life, cause I don't feel alive, and there's nothing that makes me happy. Hold my beer for a minute, I'm about to quit my job, cash in for a ticket. I'm going on a trip and I don't plan to visit. I'm gonna stay there till I feel like I'm winning, and this is just the beginning. I need a big change, help me feel like living. I need a big swing, home runs I'm hitting, and I'll never look back, moving on till I get it all. And we all got dreams, we all want things, but what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be? And do you believe you can do anything? But what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be?
Welcome to the Uncle Junior Network, and welcome to the first episode of Connecting Generations. We are here today doing this for the second time, even though y'all don't know, because we had some connection issues earlier. But we didn't, but actually I did. So with that being said, let me introduce today's panel. We have the Uncle Junior Wolf Pack here at the bottom, myself, Uncle Junior, rolling down the street, and Mr. Dwayne Dwyer. And we have from the Command Lifestyle, Mr. Eric Thomas, Mr. Eric Johnson, Mr. Andre Truss, and Mr. Tellers. Gentlemen, how y'all doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having us here. We're really excited for this conversation today.
Yeah, we're doing well, man. Appreciate it.
Good, man. Same to you as well, man. Hey, we appreciate y'all coming over here, wanting to connect with us, and us wanting to connect with you guys as well. Talk about some of the different things in the generation, some of the pros, some of the cons, some of the differences, some of the likes, and everything in between. But before we get started, I want to go around the horn with you guys and kind of see a little bit, let the audience know a little bit about yourselves. They already know who we are. And if you want to know more about us here at the Wolf Pack, go over to the Uncle Junior Network Wednesday nights, and you can find Elevated Dialogue at 7:30, and Saturday and actually Friday night you can check the Empowering Perspective podcast with Coach Dwayne Dwyer. And actually after this at about 10:30, Coach, you going live. So actually, even before we go to the gentleman at the top, man, plug your episode for this afternoon, and actually plug your show, because I jacked it up. So go ahead and do some justice, man.
No, you're good, man. I appreciate it. Listen, first and foremost, I want to say welcome to those esteemed gentlemen up top. It's a pleasure and honor just to be able to get to the point of having this conversation. And like Uncle Junior said, on Friday nights, we do a podcast on the Empowering Perspective, in the Empowering Perspective community called The Hearts of Men. And all we do is talk about things that are men issues, but it's not exempt for women. So women are definitely welcome. That's every Friday at 8 p.m. and every other Saturday, which today is one of them. We'll be having a conversation, and the conversation this Saturday at 10:30 is with Onita Simpson, who is a public figure, and our focus is going to be on one portion of emotional intelligence, and we're going to focus on personal competence. So if you're not busy, by all means, join us, and I would drop the link in the chat.
I appreciate that. And gentlemen at the top, it's been long coming, it's been long awaited, man. I met Eric back at John Maxwell conference last year. And ever since we had that conversation, man, I've been looking forward to connecting his wolf pack with my wolf pack. And finally, here we are. So, Brother Eric, since you are the one who I met, I'd like to start with you, and then I'll let you, kind of sort of introduce yourself and the other gentlemen to the audience.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Johnson, originally from Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm a graduate of the United States Naval Academy, graduated with the degree of Robotics and Control System Engineering. After the Naval Academy, I served 6.5 years in the Marine Corps, so shout out to all my veterans on here and all my active duty as well. After that, so went to the Marine Corps, 6.5 years, served as a combat engineer officer. And during that time, also started In the Smoker Lifestyle, LLC, company. So the goal of that company is I really realized that there were many people who did not have their finances together. Being in the military, which is like a kind of micro representation of America, it showed me on a large scale how behind many of us were with our finances. So one of the things that the company tries to address is the mindset for people behind money, along with providing the education that they need in order to be successful with their finances and move forward towards goals that matter to them. Now I do that full time. I'm also a John Maxwell leadership team member. As Uncle Junior said, we met in in Orlando last year, the John Maxwell conference. So definitely like speaking and empowering people. And the two gentlemen, what is that? My left are my partners on we have a company called Commander Lifestyle, which we'll definitely get into. You can see us all rocking the merch right now. But this company we're really excited about, really trying to change the game and give people a roadmap on where to go. And I know they'll touch on it as well. But we're all about helping people, trying to have the right conversations with the right people and really empower people to grow and be better than they are, than they were yesterday. Every day you wake up in the mirror, you should be looking and saying, "Hey, I beat you today, and I'm gonna beat you again tomorrow." So that's all I got. Let's trust. The next one is trust. Trust. Please introduce yourself, my dog.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Once again, I just want to thank you guys for having us on the show. I think it's very important. So what we're doing here is not only going to be opening up the dialogue, but it's going to allow other individuals to open up the dialogue as well. And we could start this conversation. So my name is Andre Truss. I actually grew up in the Bronx, New York, but I went back and forth, and I lived with my late grandmother in Jamaica, in Hartfield, Mandeville. So I went back and forth between Jamaica and the Bronx, New York. Ended up going to the, being a graduate at the United States Naval Academy. Eric and I are line brothers from the the amazing Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Let me stop. But I ended up graduating in 2016. Became an aviation supply officer in the Marine Corps, as well as a continuous process improvement officer, which is basically, for those who know Lean Six Sigma, I was basically like the Lean Six Sigma officer for my section of the Marine Corps. So I was responsible for not only aeronautical parts and financing, I was also responsible for creating better systems. So I would look at the systems, look at inefficiencies, and then weed out those inefficiencies to make them better. While I was in the Marine Corps, I've known since a young kid that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So while I was in the Marine Corps, I took that as an opportunity to build out a real estate company, as well as a holding company that allowed us to get into real estate, property management, mortgages, and different ventures that we were able to invest in over time. And then, as we've mentioned, we have our new venture, which is our restaurant. It's been rolling for about 2 years. Phenomenal. It's like the #1 restaurant in Jacksonville now. And that's not me saying that. That's the reviews, and that's the city saying that, So, I'm glad to be here. And what we're doing now is, I'm on a personal mission as well to help as many people as possible. I think I was very fortunate in many ways to learn a lot of things and be grateful for that at a young age. So now I'm at the point where I'm trying to share this information. I don't want to hoard it. That's one of the things that anyone knows me. They could give me a phone call. I don't hoard the information. I don't plan to gatekeep it. I want to share this information. I want to change people's lives. So that's me in a nutshell. And I'm super excited for this conversation.
We got to unmute his mic.
Hey, everybody. Sorry about that. I'm Tellers. Super excited to be here. First off, I want to thank Uncle Junior and the team for bringing us on. I really think conversations like this are important and they're necessary. And so we're really glad that we're going to be able to bridge the gap today. So I was born in Prince George's County, Maryland. Joined the Marine Corps in 2007. Went from the rank of private all the way to chief warrant officer. While I was I was an aviation supply officer. Basically, I ran an aeronautical warehouse for the aircraft components. It was basically like an Amazon, but for the Marine Corps. While I was I had an opportunity to work in Marine Corps recruiting, and I ran a recruiting station. I had a 5-man team. So that's where I really kind of honed my sales background, because on Marine Corps recruiting, we had an opportunity to learn, Fortune 500 sales, and then to correlate that to like bringing in people to join the service. So while I was I got the entrepreneurial bug, and I met Andre, my business partner, in about 2017, and we had kind of like-minded visions. So together we started Tellers Trust Wealth Group. Like he said, it was a holding company. With that holding company, we were able to go on adventures in real estate development, property management, and we were doing flips and things like that. Ultimately, that led us to trying to do more avenues and do more growth. So we started a restaurant, like he says, top restaurant in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And, we're looking to expand and grow that as well. Currently, our mission is, like he said, we wanted to give back and support as many people as possible, because we realized that there's a knowledge gap that we want to bridge. So we started to command a lifestyle together, the three of us, as a way to teach individuals how to earn their time back and earn their freedom, so they can live the life that they want, and try to do it in untraditional ways, unconventional ways of thinking, utilizing the technology that we have today. So that's a mission that we're championing, and we're going full steam ahead with that. And so, like I said, we're just excited to be here today to kind of cross-pollinate ideas and work together.
It's funny how you mentioned cross-pollinate. We actually just talked about that last night on Coach's show. Like, that term literally came up. Roland actually put it in the private chat for us. That's weird. That's funny. But man, hey man, you guys are young and you guys have been moving and shaking for a while. I do want to point out the fact that everybody that you see on this panel is a vet. The old guys at the bottom, the gray beards, we all retired and we all were Army. The guys at the top with the black beards, they all were Marines and they all was officers. You know what I mean? So it's funny how life works and how things just come together. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, we all got each other's back. We all understand what it's like to be in the trenches. We all understand what it's like to go through some sort of boot camp and have hard times, and then still manage to try to grow and continue to build and want to help others. So we all, in that sense, have a like mindset to want to help and give back information. And that kind of brings us to our first, kind of conversation or talking point is, we want to know from you guys, because we're the older guys and we understand that there is a disconnect, and we want to help try to bridge the gap. We understand, like, when we grew up, there wasn't cell phones, there wasn't technology. I remember when the TV used to cut off at 12 o'clock at night. You know what I'm saying? And now, like, I told some kids that in school and they couldn't even wrap their head around that concept that there is a time where there's no TV on. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, what are some of the things that you see in the older generation that we may not understand about you guys, and that's causing some of the conflict or some of the problem between getting the messages across between the generations?
I could jump in on this one, fellas.
All right.
I got you. One of the misconceptions I see pretty often, and I try not to ever have anecdotal information. I try to come in with some type of data or stats. So just on different sentiments of individuals that I've spoken to, articles that we've read, just, us being in the role to be able to hire people, bosses that we've had in the past. I think one of the misconceptions is that we're lazy, right? And that we don't want to work hard and that we don't want to put effort in. But the truth is that's not really the case at all, right? It's just that, like you mentioned earlier, where we grew up in a different age of technology. So now we're at the point where our leverage is different. So it might not take me 8 hours to do the same job that it might have taken an individual 20 years ago to do. It might only take me 30 minutes, but we're still on that same scale of 8 hours or 12 hours, even if the job only requires 30 minutes. It doesn't equate. And I think we're at the point where now communication has changed drastically, like we were mentioning. So now we got the smartest people on earth readily available to everyone. It used to be back in the day, you had to know somebody who knew somebody who got you in the room to hear Dr. So-and-so speak, right? And to hear Dr. So-and-so speak, it would be, oh, this is something I didn't understand before. I can change my life around that. Now we have Dr. So-and-so every single day in front of us. So we have an opportunity to learn at a drastically faster rate. So it's allowing us to cut down on, you know, what used to take us longer in the past to a shorter time. So I think that gets equated with us being lazy, but it's not. It's more for we're learning that there's more efficient ways. So one of the things I had mentioned earlier was I was a continuous process improvement officer, and my goal within the Marine Corps was to make systems better. But the one issue that I ran into every single time was I'd go to a unit, I'd have an individual who was older than me, and I'd say, hey, looking at the system, I can fix the system in a way that would take the Marines' time from, you know, 60 hours on this machine to possibly 5 hours. If we can contract out one of these pieces of work, we'll save money here. And on top of it, Marines will have better, you know, life quality, which will allow them to perform better and think better. And it was always met with, no, that's the easy way out. You know, they need to be working longer or X, Y, and Z, or, you know, met with, that's not the way we've always done it this way, right? This is the way we've always done it. And, you know, you guys are just trying to take the lazy way out. And I've heard that word so much that it started to feel ingrained as that might be the sentiment. Now, I don't want to place that on everyone, but that's how our generation feels, is that, you know, we're being marginalized in that sense of being lazy when it's not. We're actually ready to work ridiculously hard. It's just that now we're trying to work ridiculously hard at the right things. So I think that's a major misconception, you know, that I feel needed to be addressed.
What y'all got? What y'all, or y'all want us to keep going?
I want the young guys to keep rolling with it. I want the black beards to roll.
So go ahead, Tels. I'll finish. You go.
No, so that was a good point. You know, in terms of confusing different ways of thinking with being lazy. I think another thing that gets missed, like is a misconception, is that the young generation is kind of confused on what they want out of life, right? And so, you know, when you look at everything and how it breaks out and shakes out, I think the younger generation just kind of has a redefinition or redefine what it means to have the American dream, right? So the older generation, when they came up, it was kind of like, you know, I want to work 30 years, get the big house, the white picket fence, and accumulate large, you know, sums of debt, and that was the only way to be successful, and that's how they judge success. But with the young generation, I don't think it's that they're confused and don't know what they want. I think they're just looking at the American dream differently, right? So they're looking at, you know, freedom to explore, freedom to do what they love. For a young person, you know, freedom is a sense of having less and not about having more. And so it's about creating a lifestyle that's different. And it's not necessarily that they don't know what they want out of life. They're just redefining what it means to be successful, you know? And so when, you know, a young person has a different way of thinking, it seems like the younger generation, or older generation, I apologize, are looking at it like, well, if you don't do it this specific way, right, then it has to be wrong. And so it's like a reluctance to go through and adapt to change in different ways of thinking. And so when you kind of break it down, the young generation, they're just looking for freedom to explore, freedom to be creative, and freedom to kind of live the life that they want to live without having to, you know, incur some of the same steps and paths that was done from the older generation.
All right, so I'm gonna jump in. So I kind of want to address the question a little differently. So we talk about the misconceptions between our generation and the older generations, and I think one thing that we can all agree on, that typically misconceptions or misunderstandings come from a lack of understanding. So with that being said, I think one of the biggest things is that, at least from my experience and talking with other people, conversations we've had as well, is that many people from the older generation, instead of coming from a place of wanting to understand and guide, they try to come from a place of authority. It's like, I know better, I do this. So instead of listening and trying to understand what the problem is, they do that. But also they understand that they want to be seen as the leader or in the leadership position. But anyone that's in a true leadership position understands that the flock doesn't adjust to you, you adjust to your flock. And until people get better at making that adjustment to understand the people they call themselves wanting to lead, there's going to continue to be these misconceptions because they're not even taking the time to understand the people they're trying to guide.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think I've been guilty of that. I think I was guilty of that even as a position of authority in the military. You know, it's probably, especially when I was probably like a staff sergeant. I was like, oh man, I'm a staff sergeant. I got that little one rock under there. Like, you couldn't tell me nothing. Like, my stuff did not stink. You know what I'm saying? So it was just, you know, based off of position, you know, I automatically thought that I had that authority, you know, and there was a certain time in my career where I could like break a grown man down and like make him cry. But like, I learned that that wasn't leadership. You know what I mean? It's like, can you break him down? Can you break a dude down, and then can you walk away and have built him up before you walked away to where he's a better person after that smoking session or whatever it is that we may have went through. You know what I mean? So I applaud you guys for, you know, all your accomplishments and everything you're doing. And, you know, I just wanted to say that before we continue on. And I also wanted to shout out to the chat. I see everybody's in there. I appreciate you for being here. I know it's earlier than what we're used to being on, but hey, we all movers and shakers. So we've been up. We was talking backstage about how early, you know, these guys was up 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, I mean, Eric was up since 2 o'clock. He was at the gym for 6 hours, and then, you know, he came on here. Andre was in the kitchen cooking. He washed dishes all night, and Teller was doing his thing, and you know, he was at the club all night. You know, I'm just playing. I ain't gonna get him in trouble. So, you know what I mean? They still young, got all this energy and stuff, man. But back to the question, man, I think, you know, some of the misconceptions that you guys have talked about are pretty spot on. And I see it from my left and right, not literally from these two guys, but in general. But I wanted to ask Coach and Roland the same thing, man. What do you think are some misconceptions, or actually not even that? How do you guys feel about what the three guys at the top have said?
So let me jump in first,
Yeah.
because I love it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I listen, like I like to take notes, especially when I'm learning, right? And so Eric talked about, in essence, leadership style, right? And if you understand leadership styles, there's pretty much 4 of them. And so he talked more so about the authoritative leadership style as opposed to a more democratic leadership style, not necessarily talking politics, right? But a more democratic leadership style, which means that the person in charge recognizes that they're only in charge because of the people that they lead. And so the more subordinate leaders that they can empower, the better the organization runs, right? You know, Andre talked about being a process change manager for the most part, right? Understanding that there is, you know, Lean Six Sigma, reducing deficiencies. I agree with that. And he talked about it from a perspective of lazy, which means that most of our generation, they kind of fail into pivot. They're not recognizing like, hey, we used to be in charge, and like these guys are young, they're motivated, they're, you know what I'm saying, they're in a right position to where we need to move from being in charge to empowering them to be in charge. And I heard a phrase not too long ago to where even a king will bow before the future. And I think that carries a lot of power when it goes down to what Andre said, because I think he's absolutely correct. Like, I think we overall generationally need to understand that, sure, there may be some wisdom that we have gained with experience, but there's also like fresh, energetic knowledge that's just waiting to burst into the scenes. And you can't stand in the way of that. The future is going to happen regardless. Either you're going to be a part of change or change is going to run you over. And I think that's key. And then Tellers, you talked about is that confused at what they want out of that. We believe that you guys are fused at what they want out of life. So in other words, you guys have learned to re-image what life looks like. So in other words, like we went through an era to where hard work literally looked like hard work. And if we think about it, when we were younger, we had our seniors, they were accustomed to working with their hands. And if scientifically, when you look at it, they had huge mitts because they was out working the fields and all kind of stuff like that. What transitioned into our generation, it changed. We didn't go back to the whole having huge mitts because we're plowing the fields and putting the horses in the stable and, you know, moving the donkey. No, we didn't do all that. We got to a point, yeah, we worked hard, but there was a degree of technology that was involved with our works. And I know you guys can recognize that being former military. Well, transition now, like you have more technology and less manual labor. Right. And so I think what we have to do is recognize that there was a transition that took place when we were younger, and the transition is still happening. And when these guys get our age, the transition is going to continue to happen. So we have to learn to be a part of change. And so for me, when you ask how I feel about it, I love the fact that they're open and honest and forthcoming with this information. And what our generation have to learn to do is accept it without judgment and just recognize where we fit within the scope of this. And Uncle Junior, I like the fact that you said I was guilty of this in the Army. Me too, because I was that NCO that used to talk like this. I used to lead with the knife hand. And then I got to a point where one of my NCOs, he pulled me aside and said, "Hey man, let's talk." He said, "Man," he said, "I love you." He said it just like that. He said, "I love you." He said, "You a bulldog. You make it happen." He said, "But those guys, they want to learn. They're eager." He said, "So give them space." And I said, "I don't know how to do that just yet." I was being honest. I didn't know how to do that because that's what I was accustomed to. So I had to look at self, become more self-aware, and learn how to transition more so from an authoritative leader to more so of a mentor that made space. Like, you don't have to do it the way I do it. I just want you to understand the principles behind doing it and let me step back and see how you do it. Now that I see how you do it, well, what did you think when you did this? What was the outcome that you was looking for? So now the older generation can come from the perspective of a more mentor and a guide, as opposed to, like you said, an authoritative leader who feels that we're still in a position of directing. We ain't directing that no more, bro. We're in a position to where we're helping, and we need to recognize that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a good point you made in terms of allowing them space. Because like I was saying earlier, we have the restaurant operation that we run, and we have about 45 employees, and for the most part, about 90% of them are between the ages of 18 to 25 at max. And so what I've learned with them is you must allow them to go through their creative process to find their own voice, right? And if you marginalize them or just try to say, "Hey, this is the way we do it," there's only one way of thinking, they won't be able to discover like their true creativity. And that's what they want, to be able to discover their true creative intelligence and thinking power, which then will make them more valuable. So I think when you give them that space, we're able to, as the older generation, kind of bridge that gap, and create that more synergy for new ways of thinking. But that combination of giving them that space to go through their creative process, because they may look at something that used to take like 8 hours, 10 hours to do and say, "You know what, maybe we should do it like this." And those are the times where I learned you have to kind of be like, "All right, let me hear more of your idea," and not shut you down immediately because it's not the right way or not the way that I do it or the older generation does it. So that was a good point you brought up in terms of allowing them the space to like create, and then you can come up with new ideas and new perspectives. So that was good.
I'm gonna jump in here. I love the energy. I'm telling you, it's like I wish I had the mindset when I was you guys' age, because I would be much further ahead. Now I'm gonna throw some. Having kids, I'm sure around your age, I've seen where I have some children you can just allow to have that liberty to say, "Hey, I want to do it this way," and just just lead and guide a little bit. And some may have pipe dreams, because when I used to have a young man's group, one of the young men, he was about 5'6", 5'5", 5'6", and I would ask, "Hey, what you want to do when you graduate?" And this was like 9th, 10th grade. He would always come with, "Well, I want to be in the NBA." So I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." But and I would always ask, because I'm not going to crap on somebody's dream. I would say, "Well, what are you trying to do to get to that? Are you playing AAU? Are you on the team?" Nah, he just play on the basketball courts. So as he grew, I'm talking where he's a senior now. "Hey, what you want to do?" I told you I'm going to NBA. I had to tell him, like, "Dude, you're not going to the NBA. You're 5'6". You ain't grew since 9th grade. You're 5'6". And this was at a time where I was still playing ball, pre-5 heart attacks. I said, "Dude, if I can beat you at 30 something, you're not going to the league because you're not good enough. So you got to have a plan." So I think sometimes when it comes to the generations, not just doing what somebody else says, you have to have, like, you guys have your own mindset. You think outside the box, which is a great thing, but you also have to be willing to listen to wise counsel. And a lot of times people will ignore wise counsel because they're watching social media, they're watching TV, and they're watching all these people do things. When somebody at my age comes say, dude, you don't have the same work ethic as those people. But if you establish the work ethic, you can do whatever you put your mind to. So when it comes to the listening curve, the listening phase, I think that has to be one of those things. It's an ebb and flow where it works on both ends. Because me and one of my daughters, we talk all the time. She has her master's in psychology, psychiatry, whatever it is, and she always try to, run it on me. And she's one of those that thinks outside the box. And when we talk, I listen because I'm realizing that, okay, she's a master in her field, but I've lived a long life. Doesn't mean I'm a master at life, but I have some experience on some things where I can help her, but I also have to let her go ahead and fly. Let me see what you're going to do, because I'm in the process of seeing what she's seeing, because I can't push her towards what she's seeing if I don't see it. My job is to lead and guide or push. I'm not trying to lead and guide from the front with her, because she has you guys make plans. And I always tell people, if you don't make a plan, you ain't planning. You're planning to just sit where you are. And that's why I'm loving the energy. I'm loving that you guys have plans and you're not holding on the energy. And I think someone said they're not a gatekeeper. I think it was Andre. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I got one thing I'll jump in because I think that was a good point, Roland. You mentioned listening goes both ways, right? And it really does. And I think one of the problems with our generation as to why it's more difficult to listen is we understand the advice is sound advice, but the issue is understanding why. Right. I think that's the problem. I was talking with because we try to keep this chain alive. So just like we got, now we got the chain and the link that's above with you guys that are older and we can now talk to and communicate with. We have tons of little bros and little sis that we talk to on a regular basis. They come to our house, they eat with us, they share their ideas. And one of our younger brothers, Jawan, he told me, he's like, hey, you guys always recommend books to us, but you don't tell us why. So why would I read the book if you don't tell me why and how this is applicable to my life and the situation that I'm going through? And that was a major clicker for me, because I used to do that as well. We're not infallible in that sense. We talk to the little bros the same way, like, yo, bro, why are you doing that? Do that. And it's like, but I don't know why, right? I'm still an adult at the end of the day, and I'm still trying to grasp what's going on. I know it's easy for you. You have tons of houses, but this is my first one. And I don't know how or why I'm supposed to be getting it. And I know I trust you, but can you please explain why I should be doing this or why I should be? And that clicked for me. It was a complete game changer. Now understanding that all I have to do is, yeah, little bro, I think you should do this, but here's why, right? It's because if you don't do this, here's the pitfalls that can happen. Now, I'm not saying they will happen. I'm just saying these are the things that can happen so you can prepare for them. And if you really want to chase these dreams, it's okay. But please understand on the other side that, if it doesn't work out, here's some of the pitfalls. So as you're building up your dream, keep these pitfalls in mind. So if you could counteract them, then at least you have a better shot at making it. And I'll be here to support. It's very different from, hey, I just need you to do this because it's the right way to do it. And it took me a while to grasp that. And when I had that conversation with Jawan, I asked him the same thing. I said, what would make you guys listen a lot easier? I just want to know, like, how can we cut the time of back and forthing between you hearing what we're saying, we knowing that it's a good thing for you, but then also you being able to share your experience back, and we just come up with a super idea that we all just put into play. Like, how fast can we get to that? And he told me that the main reason was why. And when that came in, it felt like a complete game changer.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm sorry if I cut you off, because I think we grew up, this lower panel, we grew up where it was do what I told you to do. Don't ask why.
And in the Army too.
Yeah, then in the Army, you couldn't wait to get you some rank, so you can just say, because I said so. Because I'm, like, hey, and you couldn't wait. But then your generation comes in, and I have these kids and they want to know why everything. And I realize I can't just keep saying because I'm the daddy, because I said so. Because even in the military, when I would train, I was medical. When I would train soldiers, I can't tell you, don't do CPR on this dude when he has a bullet hole coming out of his chest, without telling you the why. Because no, you got to patch this up, because if you're just doing compressions, you're just pushing blood out. And it was always a problem for me when people wouldn't want to explain the why. And then in the Army, it was 91, but it's 68 now. 68 Whiskey, 68 Charlie. One was a nurse, one was just a combat medic. And I was the combat medic. And one of the guys, he said, well, y'all don't have to know why. Y'all just do it. And we figure out why. And that was an insult to me. It was an insult on my intelligence. So I said, man, if it's an insult for me asking why I should be doing something, I know everybody that comes behind me, it's an insult when you don't answer the why. Because if you don't know the why, and you might as well be a drone, you might as well be a robot. And nobody wants to feel as if they don't have any significance when it comes to any action that they're performing.
Yeah, I like that. Hey, real quick, one thing I want to do is I appreciate everybody in the chat, but I want to get to this question right here that was thrown out there. Thank you, Jonathan Huber. He's a former soldier of mine. I remember when he was a private, so way back at Fort Hood days. So how do you feel it probably goes out to the guys at the top who own the restaurant. How do you feel as an owner supervisor with the newer generation writing their issues with your company or management style on the social media? This happens more often than going face to face with the issue. You guys get that?
I can start up, or you want to start
okay.
yourself?
I'll jump in real quick. So that's a good one, because right now with the younger generation, that is their emotional outlet. That's where they're spending 90% of their time is on social media, and they're probably getting more interaction and communication online than even in the real world itself. So it's a difficult thing to kind of balance when you have somebody that is overly expressive and they want to communicate online, and they have an issue or they feel in a type of way, but we don't want them to express themselves in the medium in which they're used to, and the only medium in which they really know how. So I think it's important, if you're in the younger generation, is to understand that your online presence matters, how you present yourself to the world. It's not just about in person anymore, but it's also your online profile. How are you being viewed, and how you communicate yourself to the world? Because even us as employers, if we want to hire somebody, we're going to go and do a search on them and see what they're doing online, how they're carrying themselves online, how they're conducting themselves online. So there's more access to the individual, right? It's not just about how you look in the interview; it's about how you present yourself online. So I think that from an owner supervisor standpoint, we have to have some sort of give or take, where it's like, we understand that you're going to express yourself, but also understand that there's repercussions, if you do anything where it's going to discredit yourself or discredit the organization. So it's kind of finding that balance. But that is a tough one, because a lot of times that is their only outlet, is expressing themselves on online platforms.
Can I jump in on that real quick too?
Yeah, you got it.
So I just want to address that. Typically, we view people writing out or sending out their experiences from work as negative, right? It's normally someone's writing negative, but it doesn't have to be that way. So I like an example. When I was in the Marine Corps, the Marines across the units of all 2MEF had made like this Instagram page where they were just dogging out the units, and like they're calling out leaders. Hey, this is terrible, blah, 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 blah. And, everybody's terrified at this point. They're like, oh, they're coming in and they're calling people out. Well, one day I'm walking down the hall and my CO says, hey, Captain Johnson, hey, come see me. Hey, what's up, sir? Hey, the Marines are talking about you on Instagram. I was like, oh, no, my career's over. What are they talking about? So we sit down and he's like, nah, man, like I'm actually getting some calls from generals and whatnot. All the Marines are talking about how you're staying after till 9:00 at night, helping them with their finances. And you're the only person that's helped them, and you've done this and that, which brought a bunch of positive light to the unit, because I was going above and beyond to actually help them, because I had that open policy where they felt comfortable, where they come talk to me about their problems and talk about what was going on. And I think that's a big part of all of this too, is, when you I was like, that because I said so mentality makes you very closed off and people don't want to talk to you. So if I can't come talk to you as my leader, who I'm going to talk to? I'm going to talk to the people that feel like I have that can listen on my behalf, that care about me. And if I don't feel like my leadership is doing it, I'm going to go to where it is. So it's really just you have to be more aware of a leader about what's going on and show your people that you care, so that if they do have a problem, they feel more comfortable coming to you and not going to social media.
Yeah.
And then I also think, to jump in, that was a good answer, E, is as the owner of the company, you're in control of the company, right? We often get wrapped up in doing things the way that we've been taught to do things, but doing things the way that we've been taught to do things doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to do things. So from when your staff is going online, it's not a problem that they're going online. That's the surface level one of the answer, right? The real deeper problem is what, as you as the owner or supervisor, doing to curate a space where they can just come directly to you. Because it isn't that they want to go online, right? It's oftentimes, character flaws that we can't see in ourselves. Like, one of the things about me, I used to make people feel uncomfortable with how aggressive I was. Right. So I had to lower my tone. I was like, it isn't about them. It's about me. So after we did that, everything changed. I actually went to the restaurant on Sunday and I walked in and my staff ran up to me. Hey, what's going on, sir? Gave me a hug. What's going on with you? I know everybody, they're hooking me up with different things. They got business ideas that they're sharing with me. All of these things while they're in our place of business, telling me about the businesses that they want to start and the things that they want to grow, because business doesn't have to look traditional like what we used to think, where it's like, I'm the boss, you're over there and you're in that position, right? A business is a family at the end of the day. It could still be a family, but ran at a Fortune 500 level of organization, right? There doesn't have to be a disparity in that, and your staff will go online less, because we all had it, and it's going to happen at some point. But what we did was, when they did go online, we actually analyzed what they said and took it to heart. Okay, what did this mean? Right? Before we get upset with them, before we get angry with them, what did this mean? Well, they're saying that the work environment is, this and that. Well, that's a real concern. If it meant that they had to go online and put that online and share that, that's a real concern for them that we can't just dismiss as something little. And we spent, time and time adjusting for those fixes. And over time, people now walk in, and the culture is to talk. The culture isn't to hold it in. The culture is like, oh, we see something. Oh, we got to make sure that the bosses know, because this is like, they'll get it fixed. So now they come from an angle of knowing that if they tell us something, we're going to take it dead serious and it's going to get fixed. It's not going to be, if there's things being mismanaged, they won't be mismanaged for long, right? And if there's problems in the kitchen or in the staff or with the team, it won't be problems for long, because we're going to address it, open up Discord, allow people to talk, get their feedback and ideas. And we have a motto: the best idea wins. So if you could come up with a solution, just know that if you come with us, I need you to come with some ideas. I'm okay. I'm okay with switching things up. I'm okay with the adjustments. I'm okay with making change. But I need you to think about why it's bothering you and try to come with a solution, so that the solution team can now go provide the solution. And that has changed for us dramatically. We've seen social media pretty much go to non-existent. And now our relationship with our company is, anyone feels some type of way, they have someone within their chain of command that they can confidently speak to, that they know will advocate for them.
And you just put a lot of people on game, like real talk. Like, between you guys, 3 talking points about that question, you guys put a lot of people on game with that. So I appreciate you, and I hope the audience and the people watching really appreciate that too. And this kind of goes into the next question is why should we work together? Why is it important for you guys' generation to work together with our generation? You know what I mean? Like, we on here for a reason. We're on here to connect the generations, but why? Why is that important? And anybody can start off with this one.
I say there's a multitude of reasons, but for one, you at the end of the day, there's no denying that you guys have lived more life. You've built more connections. You've had more experiences. and all of these things, right? Like you have these things at your disposal at all times. However, we're closer to the new things, the technology, and all this. So how bridging that gap between, you know, the experiences and the knowledge you have, along with the new technology and processes and things that we may have, we can take those experiences and turn them into something new to where they can work together. And also, I think it's important for both sides to learn from each other. Like I know for us, when we have our young boys, it enthuses, it invigorates us, it brings life into us. And I see the same thing when we get on here and talk to y'all. Y'all get a little bit more pep in your step. Why? That's important. Like you don't want to just be around a bunch of tired people all the time or the same people. And I get energy from being from y'all because I know that there's something that I can gain from listening to you. At some point, one of y'all are going to drop a gem that I can go write down and apply that to my life. I get excited for that, right? But that comes over time. Just like y'all know, hey, Eric, how you do this thing on Instagram, man? Like, well, you know, and hey, try this out. Boom, boom. Matter of fact, hey, I'm gonna come. This is how you do it, and it's like, okay, like that. It's fun. We get to share because we both know we have the same goal, which is to progress. Like we all understand that growth is a continuous process, and it doesn't matter your age. If you have the knowledge and you can teach it, we should be humble enough to accept it.
So did you want to go, Tels? So one of the big things, Eric started to touch on it a little bit, and I wanted to kind of continue that point, is energy. Right? That one I think it's the most important, because as we start to formulate these relationships, we get to look forward to
Hold
getting
on real
older.
quick. Pause.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. But real quick with the energy thing, we didn't grow up with the term energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can you kind of go into detail for the viewers a little bit about what you mean as far as energy?
Okay. So the way that I'm using this term, because there's several ways to use energy, but the way that I'm using this term is the life source that keeps you going, right? And so when you wake up in the morning, that boost that gets you out of bed with no fight, that gets you going in the morning, like, okay, I got a full day ahead of me to go conquer the world. That's what I'm putting out as energy. And the reason that's so important is because before, when just to be completely honest, right, there was a period where I was looking up to all of the older guys around me, and to be real, I didn't want to be like any of them, right? So I have some really good mentors that are killing it, like really killing it at life. But the truth is, I didn't want any of their lives. Right. I didn't think any of it was cool to who I was as a person and what I wanted. And my energy was low because I didn't have anything to look forward to. So it wasn't until I started to, we started to get together as a team. We started to say, okay, well, we can just build our own life. There's no rules here. Right. Who said that we have to do it that way? Right. So now we're questioning things. And what we started to do now was find our own energy by bringing around younger guys, around us that now want to strive to be like us. So now we know it's like a continuous feedback loop of like, okay, the next generation wants to be like us. That means that we're on the right path in terms of pushing the envelope forward in a way that wasn't before. And I think that was something that, really, really will transfer into this conversation, because now we're at the point where, speaking to you guys, it's like you guys have your own show, you guys have your own network, you have your own connections. It's like, yes, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to have. I want to have more people, hearing the voices of what we're trying to say, the energy that we're trying to put out there, getting more people involved. Because as soon as we can get more people involved, the mission becomes easier. It just becomes drastically easier. So the more people we get involved, where, I might not go to, to coach for marketing. That might not be what I go to you for, but I might go to you for high levels of communication, right? The ability to speak and articulate myself at a high level. That's something that only you guys can teach us, because you've had the years and experience. So having that, now I take that energy back to the younger guys, like, hey, communication is extremely important because of these reasons, right? I learned from coach. Now I'm teaching you guys. And that continuous line, it's like a lineage of just passing the energy back and forth to keep everyone going. And we get everyone across the finish line versus, taking off on a sprint by yourself. It kind of sucks being out front by yourself, right? And it's kind of good to have somebody that you can level up, and they take off in front of you, and it's like, now I got to catch up. Now I got to level up to catch back up. Then you take off in front of them, and then now you have more people coming, and you have the generations working together to make sure that we keep the energy intact, because how are we going to sustain the mission if we don't have the energy to sustain it, right? If we're tired in the morning, if we can't wake up for it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, those are all great points, but that cross-pollination of ideas is really what's going to progress us forward, because at the end of the day, both generations want the same thing. We want to move forward. We want to progress the culture forward. We want to build. We want to help as many people as possible. And so when we work together, the idea of if I have an idea, that idea can get stale if I don't have more people with like-minded thought process in the same spaces. So with working with the older generation, they're extremely fundamental. They're extremely systematic, and some of those principles can correlate to the younger generation where, because their access to information is so heavy, right? Anything that comes up in their minds, it's like, oh, I can do it. And, it's not going to take me 10 years. It's not going to take me 15 years. I can do it in 6 months, right? That's the energy at all times. It's like, whatever I think of right now, it don't matter how much of the feat is, I can get it done. And so when you got that ball of fire, you need that older generation working with it to kind of bring in let's apply fundamentals. Let's be systematic. We can still get it done in 6 months, in time, but we can do it more smarter and more better ways. So I think that cross-pollination of ideas will help bridge the gap to new ways of thinking and new ideas, instead of people thinking, only our side is the right way or only your side is the right way, and we can't do anything to bridge the gap and work together. And I think our unit, we exemplify some of the characteristics of bridging the gap, because I am a millennial, but I'm on the higher end because I was born in 85, right? They were born in 93. So I got 92, I'm sorry.
93.
So I got to see from my standpoint, life, without the internet, life without a cell phone, life without a computer growing up. I was still turning in my papers. I was laughing about it the other day. I was still turning in 8-page papers, handwritten. They were laughing like, what? You know what I mean? So being that I got to see kind of both ends of the spectrum, we kind of practice some of those fundamentals of working together, because there was perspectives that I think of in ways that I think that was completely different. So in a lot of ways, they keep me extremely young, and I feed off their energy, and I can bring some different wisdom and perspective. And so we've been able to, steamroll our processes a lot faster because we were working together. So I think by going up even a step higher to the generation above, now working with all of us, I think that the sky's the limit, and the ideas that can flourish from that is going to be tremendous. So just that cross-pollination of two generations all fighting towards one common goal is going to be what is the most impactful ways moving forward. So yeah, I think we all can benefit from that.
Another thing real quick, just to add, is I think we also have to realize is that, as an older generation, y'all have that bigger perspective. We talk about leadership, right? And being able to see the bigger picture. But there's some things that require a little bit of some backbreaking work, and having some young guys that you can trust. We're the ones that pick the pack up and carry the ball forward, because you might not have the energy for it. There's times, it's like, I have a great idea. I know this, but I don't physically have the ability or capability to see this thing through. But these young guys I know over here, I know if we sit down with a plan, they can get it done, and having that as well, because there's certain things you might 20 years ago, you might have been all for it. But now, I'm not trying to do all that. And, but I know some people that can, and that's important too.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Were you finished?
I was going to make one point. Also, kind of touching on that is, the older generation has fundamentals and practices that have been proven, time and tested, and have worked, right? So although we changed and went into a new era, those ideas can still be relevant. So that's another thing. Like my grandfather, he's worked and he's been self-employed his entire life, right? But he doesn't have access to. He doesn't have a website. He doesn't have social media. He's not using traditional forms of marketing, but he's built a sound business, right? So when you also work together with old generations, you can offer a tweak or two or there, and now you can take those sound fundamentals and bring them into the 21st century, right? And then create things that are unimagined that we can't realize. And so what I often say to him is like, I like how you've done business over the last 30 years. Let me like tweak it a little bit, be your hands and your arms, and right. And then now we can take that even a step further and make it go another 30 years, but now in the current system of the 21st century. Right. So there's a lot of opportunity when you speak to the older generation, and you can get those fresh ideas in there, which I think is key as well.
A lot of great talking points that these gentlemen just shared, and I agree with them 100%. And just for the record, Roland is older than everybody at the bottom row. So anyway, I want to start off by saying, why should the different generations work together? Because our culture requires it. I think that's the biggest piece I want to hang out with. Our culture mandates it. Like, I have a grandson. My grandson needs for us to work together, because eventually, and I don't know what generation he exists in, he might be like generation B right now. I don't even know where we are on this whole thing. I think we started back over with the alphabets, right? But what is it?
I think it's Gen Z's.
We're past Z now. I think we're on A or B again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it started over. But so the generations to come need us to work together, just like my mother and my father need us to work together, just like we need to work with them as well. So we on the bottom row, we're still in concert with our parents, getting information and pulling wisdom from them so that we can not only implement it in our life, but share it with you guys as well. So that's how it works. So the culture mandates us to come back together. I think if we watch the news long enough, we will see a divide and what it looks like. That divide means that we're ultimately fighting against one another. This is the heart pain for me. Right. It bothers me to see us killing each other in the streets. It bothers me to see us bickering back and forth about pointless things. When it comes down to it, we need to find a way to come together as a culture overall. And that mandates that every generation has a degree of honor and respect for one another. Secondly, the generations to come need to see that. So my grandson needs to see that the younger men have a respect for the older men, and the older men have a respect for the younger men. And I'm not using men in terms of just male and female. I mean, I'm not using men in terms of just males. I mean it as in terms of male and female. Like, we have to find a way to learn how to respect one another and care about one another again. I love your response when it came down to how you do business when somebody takes to social media, because I put a comment in there, and that comment was about character. Trust, you were thinking exactly what I was thinking, bro. It's not that I go and correct their character. It's that I take a look at my character to see what sent them to social media. That's part of the necessity of us bridging the gap when it comes down to this, whatever divide or rift or whatever exists between generations. And the last point that I want to make is that we are writing history every day of our life. And if we don't understand that, go back and read the history books now. Everything that we're doing today is literally scripting what the history books are going to read for my great grandson to come. So it is imperative that we find a way to work together.
This is a heck of a conversation, and I think first and foremost we got to be honest with ourselves, because a leader only knows what he knows, and he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And you, as a leader, if you have people with capabilities that are outside of your vision, that's fine. We have to, as older people, we can't look at everything as, oh, they just trying to take over everything. Sometimes we need them to push us ahead because we don't know how to do it. Like, I was sitting here when we was backstage, and I seen each of you guys' shirts. I'm like, okay, they marketing themselves. They own it. And that's one of those things where my daughter always say, she talk about my hats and stuff on the wall. She say, yeah, when you get your thing going, I'm gonna have to set it up, because she's looking at it as other people are going to be looking at everything that you do, and they're going to look at your surroundings first and foremost. And when I was in the military as a leader, you had a BlackBerry when I came in. I don't know if y'all even know what a BlackBerry is. You had a BlackBerry, and they came out with them doggone iPhones, Apple phones and stuff, and you had to touch it. And I got one. I'm like, how you move this thing? Because I'm used to and typing and stuff. I'm like, man, that phone's stupid. it wasn't the phone that was stupid. It was that I was ignorant of how to use it. I didn't want to change. And that's one of the things that us, the older generation, has to do. We got to be willing to change. We got to get rid of that BlackBerry and move to the iPhone or the Samsung or whatever you want to use these days, because time ain't gonna stop just because I don't want to learn. And if it's a younger person that will teach me how to move forward, I have to be accepting of it and willing to move forward and realize they're pushing me ahead and we going ahead together. Because even with the civil rights movement, those guys weren't old. We look at them like they were old men, and because they had the little mustaches and stuff, but those guys was 18, 19, 20, 21. So it's always the younger generation that has that fire for change. And I'm appreciative of it.
Yeah, same here. I think we should work together for all of those reasons. I've listened to everything that was said, and I was just like, man, so much more information just keeps coming out with every word that someone says. This is like, I want every man, need to watch this conversation. I'm not just saying that just to plug the show. Like, I'm being real. Like, it's a whole bunch of game, whole bunch of jewels been spit by everybody here, man. It's like, I don't know. It's like I'm in heaven in a sense, when you're around greatness, because, like for me, I don't have any older men in my life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have any men in my family who are age 60 plus, no grandfathers, no uncles, like everybody's gone. So, and then I don't have like, a very extended family to where those people are out there either. So it's like, as far as anybody who's blood to me, I don't know anybody who's related to me who's 60 or plus. So for me, I am learning from Coach, I'm learning from Roland, I'm learning from people on the show, and I'm learning from people like you guys who are sticking and moving, not, let me take it away, who are moving and shaking, you know what I mean, and doing things. There we go. You know what I mean? So it's like, energy and information comes in all different forms, and it comes from people from both generations. And I've learned so much on this show already. You know what I mean? So before we get into the final thoughts, in about another 15 minutes or so, I just want to go around and I want to know, you know what I mean, from everybody, what is something that you would like to know about or know from the other generation?
I can start off. So there's a breakdown, I think, in the family structure, and people are no longer really placing value on family. One thing I really admire about the older generation is their emphasis on family, because for me, I believe the family is like a strong, can create a strong unit and powerful dynamics in terms of wealth and leadership and health. So my question is, from your perspective, what do you guys believe causes division? And what can we do as younger guys to make this more of a priority amongst our peers?
I'm sorry, I couldn't I couldn't unmute fast enough. So I want to make sure I got your question right. The first question is, what created the issue and what can we do to fix it?
Correct.
Okay. What created the issue is people not understanding what family and relationship is all about. That's what I really do believe. What you don't understand, you abuse it. I make a joke about the butter knife all the time because I think the butter knife is the most flexible tool that we have in the house. The butter knife is everything, a screwdriver, a crowbar, and everything, but spreading butter. That's all it's used for. So when it came down to the family unit, the older generation, they didn't necessarily understand it, and they passed that on to us. And so a lot of us in our younger years, we didn't understand how to develop a family or how to nurture a family. When we got older, we started going to the source document. For many of us, it's the Bible, right? We went to the source document to have a better understanding of what the family is for and how we as men can nurture and develop a family. So now the way that we fix it is that we usher you guys into what we learned in our later years of living, as opposed to letting the old information continue to permeate throughout our society. So I think that was a very clear, a very short answer, but I think it was very concise and to the point. And if I answered your question, sir, I want to make sure I ask that first before we move on.
No, you did. I appreciate that perspective.
I'll jump in with a question. So from our lens, we're going through a transition as well, right? Because technology is improving so fast that even when you catch up, there's still more catching up to do, right? So coming from your generation, how has this transition been for you guys? I know you mentioned earlier, I think it was Roland, about getting rid of the BlackBerry and stepping into this new generation of technology, and which really is just mindsets and thought processes. But how have you guys been dealing with that transition? How has that been affecting you positively or negatively?
I would jump in. For me, it's been ups and downs. I think initially there was a lot of pushback for me. I was like, I ain't getting no Facebook, I ain't getting no TikTok, I ain't getting no Snapchat. But it's something that we actually mentioned, a few weeks ago, was it works better now because now I have different avenues and different ways to connect with the other generation. So the only way I can talk to some of my nieces and nephews is on Snapchat, right? So I had to download Snapchat in order to be to communicate, because I would text them and they won't text me back for 3 or 4 weeks. But if I snap them, immediately I'm getting a response back. And it might just be a blank picture or just nothing, the sky. You know what I'm saying? But they responded back. They communicated. I know they're in live. I know they love Unc. You know what I mean? So it is great for me. And I also understand, I think because we didn't have it, someone mentioned earlier about the encyclopedia and even the Dewey Decimal System that we had. Y'all probably don't even know what that is. You know what I'm saying? But that's what we had. And that's how we used to look up books. When we used to do reports, we used to have to go to the library, check out the magazines and books. And if everybody was doing the same report, there was only limited amount of resources for the same project. So everybody trying to do the senior project, the senior paper on Malcolm X. So the 3 Malcolm X books that they have is gone. Whereas now we're not limited to resources. So I think one of the things as the beneficiary of the technology and how the older generation, how it all comes together, I think for me, it's a win. It's a win all day, because I see technology as a tool, and that to be able to get resources and to be able to get information faster. I don't have to read a book anymore to get the information. I can, because reading a book takes time. I can get a book and I can put it on 1.5 speed, and then I can get that book read and get the information at a whole lot faster pace. So I'm all for technology. I love it. I can't wait to see what else we get. One day when Elon Musk decide to put that little chip in the head, like, I'm not getting one, but I think it's a cool idea. And that's all. You hear about that?
Yeah.
Oh, we heard about it.
Yeah. Neuralink. Yeah.
Yeah, Neuralink.
And also, I think when it comes to technology, sometimes when you get in your comfort zone, you're scared to acknowledge you don't know something. And I think for our generation, sometimes it's a fear of having to learn it again. I got to do it again. And we get lazy sometimes. It's like, okay, I just got this. And then I just bought this computer, and now a year later it's obsolete, and you always have to upgrade. And that's a life thing. And when it comes to, I think Taylor's talked about the family. I think the family structure, as well as technology, people always focus on the very negative aspects of everything. Well, all the family's going to hell. All the technology is used as the devil. It's like, all of it? Like, no, it can be. It can be if the only thing you get on there for is to communicate with the opposite sex in some various way. And with the family, if the only thing you think a family is there for is to hold your back when you fall on your face, you're wrong. So I think we have to watch who we allow to pour into us when it comes to technology, as well as what comes through technology, as well as what comes from the lens of family, because we can say, well, just keep it in the family, and it's some destructive behaviors that's going to be passed down. So now you have traumas that are built in young boys and young girls that were experienced through the family, but it's family. You got to keep it. Don't snitch on the family. Like, what? No, Uncle Junior need to be, not Junior, but Uncle whoever need to be in jail, or something has to be done. And I think we have to look at everything as a case by case basis. That way, we don't just go into it with a broad lens and map everything together.
It's my turn, or is it?
Yeah.
You guys say. So I have a question, but I don't think it's necessarily tied to like our generation to yours. I think it's every generation kind of experiences this thing from the one above, and it deals with growth. And with us understanding that growth is a continuous journey, as a person that has made growth a priority in your life, how do you go about addressing someone from, I guess, an older generation that may not have necessarily, they've stopped their growth. They're stuck in their ways and they're where they are. You as a, I guess, more enlightened individual that is trying to do better, trying to have better conversations. How do you go about addressing issues and conversations with a person from a generation ahead of you that doesn't necessarily have the same ability to communicate with as you do?
So are you trying to keep your black beard, or you want to turn like mine? That's where I'm gonna start off at, because I'm gonna be honest with you. For me, let me first start off by saying it took me, and I'm sure you guys got there long before I did, but it took me years to understand that growth was a part of life's journey. Sure, the conversations had taken place, but for me to really grasp what that meant, I was in my 30s, late 30s, much further along than you tellers, late 30s. So it was like, oh, okay. So I had to go through a rapid growth process. I literally got to the point where I isolated myself from everybody. And I just got into it with books, God, and the individuals who understood what I did not understand. And so when I got it, I got excited and I wanted to share it with people. And then I realized that, well, I can't share it with people who don't necessarily grasp it, because then I'm going to have those headbutt conversations. My dad being one of them. I'm just going to be completely transparent. When I heard you ask that question, he's the first person that popped into my mind, because he is still trying to push down onto me antiquated information that I know is unfactual. And so I say, no, Pop, that's not how it is. Well, that's right. Okay, fine. You know what I'm saying? And so I had to get to the point where I realized that everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and that's just what facts look like to them. Facts are not facts to everyone. And I always use the example, like, say, for example, there's a stop sign at the end of my street. Well, we all have driver's license. We understand that we are supposed to come to a complete stop. But some people are conditioned to the concept of slow through open pass, which means I don't have to come to a complete stop. But in their mind, they did. And once you come to that realization, I think that minimizes the stress. Just meet them where they are, appreciate where they are, and let's just be honest. Don't allow their worldview to infect your life. I think that's the biggest revelation I had to accept from my father. It doesn't mean I don't love him. It doesn't mean I don't respect him. I just had to come to the point, say, his life is his, my life is mine. And according to my source document, I have to work out my own salvation in fear and trembling.
So through understanding the person, you're able to accept that, and it kind of brings some peace into your mind, so you understand that I'm not even going to address it that way because it's not worth it.
Absolutely. And that's how you avoid this.
Hey, I got it coming. You check the side. We'll talk about that later.
I got you,
man.
I got you.
Hey, again, I appreciate the chat. Antoine, I see you over there. Natasha, everybody who was in there. I'm not going to go through an individual everybody name by name, but however, I see you in there. I thank you for supporting the show today. Thank you to everybody who's been watching at home. But before we do, we want to end with the final thoughts. It's been so much good conversation that has been said today, but I just would like to give everybody an opportunity to go around the table and kind of just hear what everybody has to say before we roll out. So here we go.
Oh, it's me. All right. Well, hey, one of the biggest things, I think there was a lot of great conversation on here today, and I'm glad we were able to get some of this conversation, this dialogue flowing, because for many people, they don't have a source or a place that they can go to have these conversations. And I think that we all can agree that until these conversations are had more often, we're going to continue to have the same problems. And I hope that throughout this, it encourages more people to have these conversations within their friend groups, within their families, within their households, because that's the only way that we can identify the issues and come up with effective changes that are going to get us where we need to be. And anyone that knows me, if you follow me on social media, one of the things I truly believe in is group economics. I don't believe in doing things alone. So, actually shout out to Trust. So we rewatched, Planet of the Apes the other day, and one of the things they talked about is how apes were stronger together. And I'm not comparing us to apes. However, the concept is the same, which is that I do believe that we are stronger together. If there's a bunch of us here and we all have the same information, access to the same resources, and we can all share the time commitment, we can get a lot farther than we can alone. So that's one of the messages that I want to continue to preach and spread to everyone, is find people that you can build with. Don't just try to sit around and figure it out yourself, because it's a lot harder to figure things out alone. When you got two people that can digest information, you'll figure it out faster than one. Three people, faster than two. So the goal should be to grow your community with like-minded people that care about you as much as they care about themselves. That's all I got.
All right, so I'll jump in next. So I got a little motto. This is something I've been saying, over the past few years, and it's something that I take, extremely serious. But my motto is the best idea wins. Right? The best idea wins. And what I'm trying to get across with this is, if you get a group of smart people in the room, energetic, right? And not everybody needs to be smart in the traditional book sense. You might have somebody that's smart with emotional intelligence. You might have another person who's a genius with creativity. You might have another person that's a genius with mathematics and philosophy and thought processes. And if you get these people into a room, you remove all ego, all pride, all sense of entitlement, all sense of needing to be correct, and you pose a question and you allow that room to work together, the best idea wins. It doesn't matter who says it, or it doesn't matter who gets us across the finish line. The goal is that there is an answer and that we get across the finish line. So whether it's my brother Eric, whether it's Coach, whether it's Uncle Junior, Tellers, or myself, or Roland, that comes across with that idea, it doesn't matter, because we all have it. We all win. So if we can adopt that concept of the best idea wins, it'll allow us to move so much faster and so much exponentially quicker. And that's something that I'm always excited to share. So the best idea wins, and I'm gonna keep pushing that.
Hey, so one thing I want to leave everyone with, and this is a perspective in the way we do business and how we conduct ourselves in our friend group. And so I want to redefine what it means to be successful. Oftentimes, people think that when you're successful with, only if you create a business or you make $1 million, or you do something on a large scale, that's totally centered on yourself. But there's one piece of the scoreboard that's often overlooked, and that's the assist, right? So for us, success comes from how many people have you assisted? If you have a business, who else did you help get one? If you have $1 million, who else did you help get $1 million? The assist is the most important thing when it comes to being successful, because we're, like Eric said, we're all stronger when we work together. And I would rather have 5 millionaires than one, right? So when the way we operate and move through life is, how many people can we make impact on? How many people can we help achieve their dreams? And how many people can we bring to our village to be able to share in the same things that we share in? So when it comes to success, it's all about making impact and offering as much assistance as you can to bring everyone to the same space so we all can thrive and be stronger together.
I guess he passed me the assist. Communication is the key, but I think we need to stop thinking that people should communicate like us. People need to be themselves, and you need to realize how they are communicated to, how they respond. So we aren't talking at one another. I think this is an energy thing that I love, and simply bridging the gap. It's like on Jerry Maguire, he said to Cuba Gooding Jr., help me help you. And that's why we're here. Whether it be the younger generation or older generation, I'm realizing that I don't know everything and I don't know how to do everything, and vice versa. And we're simply here to help one another. So I could see this actually moving to a thing that's done often. That's often not the same topic, but the cast, so that we can communicate one with another, so that we can watch others within this circle grow and thrive.
Speaking of assist, Roland just gave me a perfect assist because I'm all about community. And I think what we have to realize is that community is whatever you create it to be. It could be your neighbors within the area that you live. And depending upon where you live, everybody may not look the same. It doesn't really matter, right? As long as you recognize the benefit of the community. The foundation of the community is the family. Going back to a question that I thought was just great, which was asked earlier. The family is the foundation of the community. Therefore, when you understand, when you go out and represent yourself, you are representing your family, regardless of whatever community that you found yourself in. This is an example of a community. This is definitely a growth focused community, a community that is intentional about connecting generations so that we can learn from one another, not control one another. I want to stress that. This community is all about learning from one another, not control one another. Once we get out of the mindset of control, then we'll stop trying to wield power over another person. That fits every model that you want to inject it in. Stop trying to control people. Learn how to work with people and cooperate, right? Once you do that, then you will find that things work out better. So I'm looking forward to the conversations that are to come.
Hey, gentlemen, thank you so far. Well, thank you for being here today, man. I appreciate it. You know, this was a consolidated effort, man. So many great words and everything that was saying here today. So I really appreciate everybody being here. You know, it's early in the morning. Not really, like I said, not really early for us, but for a lot of people. So thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to everybody who's at home, who's watching from home. If you liked the video, if you thought that it was good, please share it with somebody. Hit the like button on your way out the door. Also, just if you want to buy a book, got one right here. In the Smoker Mindset, Mr. Eric Johnson. So go out and pick it up. I'm sure the link will be in the description later on. And we are out. Have a good evening.
Peace.
I have a great day. Thank you.